Hi, this is Vallisa from Lyca Radio, and today I am going to be joined by Kaushik Ray, a filmmaker, a director, and a lawyer. So we're going to get into that and find out more about Kaushik. How are you today?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to be talking to you.
Welcome to Lyca Radio. Now, I did just mention this, but you are a lawyer who actually worked on films like Slumdog Millionaire and Fish Tank, and then you turned your hand to filmmaking. What piqued your interest?
Yeah, so I think I've always had some kind of creativity in me, but growing up in a British Asian household, I was told, there's basically two choices to be a doctor or a lawyer, and I chose to be a lawyer. But actually, in all honesty, I quite liked the idea of debating and all that kind of stuff at school. So kind of falling into law was a bit more natural to me. But I always had a bit of a creative bent, and on the side, I was writing and kind of kept up some kind of side hobbies. And then at a certain point, kind of during lockdown, I thought, well, what am I doing? If I'm not going to do it now, I'm not going to make the change now, then I'm never going to do so. So yeah, I decided to make the switch full time.
And this isn't your first film. You've scripted and directed this particular film as well. But why did you decide to do this all by yourself and not get other filmmakers involved with, say, the directing or the helping you with the scripting?
Yeah, so I mean, I during lockdown, I basically just started writing, and I sent it to a few people that I thought might be interested. And then I realized I didn't really know what I was doing, so I had to kind of then start, buying books, doing courses, trying to just learn a little bit more about script writing because it's quite different from kind of it's very structured and quite different. And then I wrote something and sent it to a couple of producers, and anyway, it got picked up. My feature film got picked up, but they said the only way they would do it is if I directed it.
Hmm.
Um, and then that was a massive surprise. So like, well, one thing to write something, but I literally have no idea. Didn't even know what a director does. I said when they said that, I said, I've never picked up a camera. And they were like, yeah, a director doesn't actually pick up the camera. So that's how little I knew. So then again, and I just approached it kind of, a bit in my head, a bit cerebrally, and I did some courses, read books, and then that started the journey really of becoming a director. And they said, you've got to do a short film just to get yourself on set, just to kind of understand a little bit more. So it all happened really quickly, to be honest. I wrote something quite quickly, gathered some great actors and actresses together, um, and then yeah, I just kind of sort of faked it till I made it, kind of thing.
And did you actually find your time as a film lawyer helped you learn some of the skills you did need for your own filmmaking journey?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. What I realized, and I realized much later, is actually being a director is just about, I mean, literally directing people. It's the same job as a manager, basically. And that's a skill as 20 years as a lawyer in the city I've learned, which is communicating with people, telling people what you want and what you need, listening to people, trying to kind of so all of that sort of management and communication massively, massively helped. And it means I'm taking a bit more seriously when I'm talking to people in the film industry generally. I kind of have an idea about rights and all the kind of the more business aspects. I kind of don't get hoodwinked by big talk and by big bosses and producers kind of talking about money and things. I do understand that side as well, so it's definitely helped.
And I mean, I'm a filmmaker myself. I actually studied film and television, so
Oh,
I know
cool.
exactly what you're
Awesome.
talking about. But being a writer director, it does also give you a bit more control, but you also know your script because you've written it. If you need to, I remember when I was on my first film set, I had to change a scene, and literally overnight, I rewrote my scene. So you can do that because you know the story better than anybody else. Not that I'm saying a director who has another writer wouldn't, but there's sort of certain elements that you can as a director turn around and go, actually, do you know what, I can drop this, because anyone that's in filmmaking knows that you don't film seats. It's not that it films from start to end. You could film the end scene before you film the start. And so as a director, it must have been easier for you to turn around on set and be like, oh, actually, do you know what, yeah, we can tweak this or we can change this sort of line here, but the film will still make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, what I learned though, more than anything, I so my lead actress is Lilette Dubé, who was in Wanted Wedding, but obviously she's been in Kal Ho Na Ho. She's a wonderful actress, and she was so professional and so good with me. And actually, she said on a couple of points, I just don't think the character would say this or would do this. And so we just sort of sat down and we workshopped a little bit with my lead actor, Kush Khanna and Let G. We just sat and brainstormed a little bit and reworked things and tried them out. So I think, I mean, my view is that anyway in life you've got to approach things with a bit of humility. But definitely because it was my first film as writer and director, I took that approach that I don't know everything. And so whilst at the end of the day I had kind of final say and I, went with my gut, um, I was very open to that kind of back and forth with people who've done it a bit more than I have. And as I say, Liledji was an absolute professional. She was brilliant.
And the lime green shirt, that is your latest offering. Can you tell us a little bit about the storyline?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a mother-son story. It's kind of an immigrant Bengali mother, and her son wins a singing competition, and he kind of runs in. He's super excited. He's wearing this lime green shirt. His hair's all in spikes. He's got glitter on his face. He's only a 13-year-old, and he's super excited. And she tells him before even kind of acknowledging that he's coming in with holding a prize in his hand. She's like, "Gonna get out of my sight because what is that in your hair and what the hell are you wearing? And so you're shameless coming into my room like this." And so that's where we start, and we sort of see 15, 20 years later the effect that that kind of upbringing has had on the kid. But actually, I've decided to kind of twist it a little bit and look at it from the mother's perspective, because I think it's an easier narrative to say, yeah, the boy who wanted to be a singer, but actually that's code also for he was a gay boy, he was a queer boy, and the thing that she was quashing by saying, I don't want you to be a singer, she's also quashing his spirit, his gayness, it's all of that, it's all kind of intertwined. But I thought that's actually not the story I want to tell. I want to tell it from the other side, from the immigrant mother's perspective. What are her fears? Why it's just not black and white. It's not as easy as she's the baddie and he's the goodie. And so that the film kind of takes you on that journey to understand. And I'd like to think there's a sort of a bit of a happy ending, a hopeful ending anyway.
And how sort of important do you think these messages still are today? Because obviously interracial marriages, queer, lesbian, gay, whatever you want to call it, those sort of marriages within the South Asian community are now a bit more open. People know more about it. Even just if we take that element of it away and we talk about the arts industry, it's now become a bit more acceptable to want to work in arts, whether you want to be a radio presenter, a filmmaker, an actor, a singer. It has become a bit more of a, I don't want to say it's completely, all parents are open to it, but it has become a bit more open recently.
Definitely, it has, and I'm probably from of the generation where my kind of generation were maybe the ones that pushed things for the first time, and we've had some great successes. People of my, I feel a little bit older, but I grew up watching Goodness Gracious Me and just looking at Mirasile and Adi and the rest of them, going, "This is so amazing." And I was just coming into my the late teens, uni when that, and it was really the first time. And so those guys are really the pioneers of that. And I'm so glad that's changed. And I think, another 10, 15 years later, we started to have a bit more acceptance in the queer community amongst South Asian. It's definitely not perfect. It's not there yet. But there's a kind of a joke in the film, which is based on a true story, where the mother says she's kind of fine with the queerness because, she went to that lesbian wedding reception at Claridge's. Of course, I'm okay. And it's just funny because actually the things that that generation of parents really cared about was establishment and status and financial security. So, if your daughter marries a woman, it might be okay if she's marrying a woman who's a doctor and from a really good family and they're getting married at Claridge's. It's like it's a different thing. And you might, be able to. So I kind of explore that aspect of it where it's not just about tradition and religious and cultural values anymore. There's much more nuance to it, as I think in the South Asian community than there was.
And you're actually a lawyer turned filmmaker. This is about a singer, so it's inspired by your own life journeys as well. Was it hard to write a film like this when it's so close to your own story?
Um, Actually, it made it a bit easier because when I was told, oh, you've got to do a short, I didn't have anything prepared, and I thought, well, I mean, I almost describe it as my origin story because I was that kid in the lime green shirt who runs up to my parents' bedroom and gets told to wash the crap out of his hair and take the disgusting shirt off. So that bit is true, and I just then wanted to explore and play for it. The rest is kind of fiction. What what that might mean to someone who wanted to be a. Fortunately, I wasn't a very good singer, so it was never really an issue. It was never really an issue for me. I never had that dilemma. But I just wanted to explore if a kid was, you know, talented in that way, but that was kind of quashed because the parents wanted them to become a doctor or all the kind of cliches. What would it be like 20 years down the line? What would it look like if that passion hadn't died? Because I think talent and creativity, if that's innate within you, I don't think it does die. And you know that, and it kind of unleashes in all kinds of different ways. But it would be very difficult to quash that, right? So I just wanted to explore that. So um, it was a little, it was a little bit hard, kind of going over kind of old ground in a way to my kind of personal experience, my personal difficulties with my parents and coming out and all of that. But I feel quite comfortable. So it's 20 years since I did that. We're sort of a bit beyond that. But yeah, it was a little bit hard, but at the same time, it a little bit easier to write, to be honest.
And of course, Saraswati Sinha, the mother character in the film, so she's lost connection with her son. She was very stern, sort of put her foot down. He almost lied to her about his life. Was there an underlying message that you were trying to portray through this? Maybe from a parent's point of view more than maybe the singer's point, the Agash's point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like in all societies and all cultures, but definitely in our kind of Asian culture, there are a lot of things that are not said. That kind of language, that sort of emotional language, isn't necessarily there. Our love language tends to be about food and family and lots of other things. But it doesn't tend to be sit down and tell me how you're feeling, and what's really going on for you. And I think it's so common in our, and certainly in my upbringing, that we wouldn't necessarily talk about real things, but we might have a big biryani together and bond over that, and that would kind of be the healing and the love and the togetherness aspect. So I think part of the message that I'm trying to get out is actually these two characters, they're not speaking to each other, and they're literally not speaking to each other, but they're also not saying the things that each of them really want to say. And in the film, they end up saying it at the end, and that kind of creates the change. So I really want to encourage, parents to talk to their kids at that level about feelings, about their wants and their desires, and likewise for the kids to have an understanding of where the parents are coming from.
And the film, of course, was part of the BFI Flare Festival, which is a very close festival to your heart. And how did it feel to be there and have your film shown there?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, London's hometown, so it's a big festival in London. It's Europe's largest LGBTQ plus festival, which is amazing. But actually, the reason it's so important to me is during lockdown when I started making films as a producer, and I started supporting Indian and British Asian filmmakers tell their stories. And my first film as producer was at BFI Flare 2 years ago. And I met some really interesting people, and I met my current producer there. So it really felt full circle to kind of have my first film as writer director there as well. And it's a brilliant festival, really, really fun.
And how was the film received by the audience?
I have to say, I was just blown away. It was a 450 seat theater. People laughed, people cried. It was a really lovely energy in the room. I was super, it honestly couldn't have gone better. I was so happy. Yeah.
And are you considering making this into a full feature film?
Well, I'm working on my feature film. It's called A Life, a Rose, and it's set between late 1960s Kolkata, and contemporary Paris. And it's a story of two girls who kind of fall in love as teenagers, but they don't really have the words for it, and their families tear them apart, and they meet 50 years later for the first time. And so it's a story of lost love and hope, and kind of what happens in between. And so that's in full development flow. The Indian actress Dipti Naval has signed up to play the lead role. So yeah, we're kind of forging ahead, and I'm rewriting the script based on what I've learned from my experience as a first time writer director, and working on my visual language a little bit. But yeah, I'm hoping that that goes to floor within the next 12 months or so.
Amazing. Well, good luck with the release of that when it does come out, and good luck with the rest of your filmmaking journey. And I'm sure
Thank
we'll
you
speak
so
to you
much.
again soon.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you, Vallisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.